Hey, how's it going, people? Welcome back to Milk and Cookies Total War. I am Indie Pride, and today I'll be bringing you some more multiplayer action on Mortal Empires. This time, Malekith the Witch King and the Dark Elves versus Grombrindal the White Dwarf, the reincarnated, very grudgeful, very angry reincarnation of Snorri Whitebeard. And of course, Malekith and Grombrindal were great friends, and this is a very interesting matchup from a lore perspective and from a multiplayer perspective. I think a lot of people wanted to see how the murderous prowess and how the overwhelming armor piercing of the Dark Elves would match up against the newly rebalanced Dwarfs. So we'll go over army compositions real quick, and then we'll get into the battle. So in my front lines, I have 4 Black Ark Corsairs, just to give me some numbers and some bonus versus infantry on the main line. I have 3 Hargoneth Executioners with their bonus versus infantry and their armor piercing. I expect them to perform very well against the Dawi. Of course, we have a Death Hag on an Altar of Cain. Kind of functions like a chariot and really matches up very well versus Dwarfs as well. Again, armor piercing and bonus versus infantry. So pretty much everything I'm going for has bonus versus infantry and armor piercing, which might be a problem for the Dwarfs. But remember that they're getting some new toys to play with as well. So we'll talk about that in a second. Out on the flanks, I have 2 Cold One Chariots. Malekith the Witch King himself is also on a Cold One Chariot. And in the back, we have a unit Vanguard deployed, some Dark Riders to quickly shut down any ranged firepower Thunderers or Skirmishers, or any artillery might be trying to rip up my main line before we start engaging. So, Grombrindal, the White Dwarf, is leading the forces of the Dawi. Massive melee attack of 70. He's got 500 weapon strength, a lot of that AP, so he's going to be a good tanky front line, and Flash Bomb should help neutralize some of that chariot threat. We have the Runesmith with the newly rebalanced Rune of Wrath and Ruin, which now will dramatically reduce the speed of any incoming unit. So again, a pretty nice tool against the chariots and stuff that I've brought on the field. I have a lot of mobility, so being able to eliminate some of that will be very nice. Quarrelers in the back, and probably the most important linchpin of this build are the Thanes, which have the new Tormentor sword. Minus 26 melee attack in an AoE, and cannot move when you pop this hex. Very powerful. What it does essentially is for 19 seconds, whatever's coming in to charge, whatever's trying to pull through the Dawi lines will get frozen completely and allow Slayers or whatever unit you have, Thunderers, to turn around and focus fire it down before it's able to do any more damage. So that should definitely help against the Cold One Chariots and Malekith that will be looking to rampage through the main lines. Miners with blasting charges, Longbeards, lots of cost-effective armor piercing in the front for Turin and for the Dawi, and Grumbling Guard in the center to buff up the exhaustion and make sure that his troops don't get very tired. Longbeards with great buttons on the flanks, some Quarrelers, and Organ Guns, which have been rebalanced. They do a lot more damage now. I'm not actually sure every single change that got made here. Again, I don't have the patch notes yet, but Organ Guns definitely seem a lot stronger than they were in Game 1. Dragonback Slayers, of course, a great choice against any kind of faction you expect to be bringing chariots or cavalry with armor piercing, because they're going to do a lot of damage, one, with that bonus versus large, and they have the slowing aura around them as well, which I can't find right now. Where is that at? Yeah, the power of the Dragonback, minus 36% speed to any unit that they engage in melee, so pretty strong there as well. He also has the Goblobber just to neutralize some of the morale and do some damage from range. So those are the builds. Let's press play. So first thing I'm going to do is send these Cold One Chariots out to the flank while the Organ Guns start ripping up the main line. Those Black Ark Corsairs lost 16 models in the first volley from the Organ Guns, so already taking quite a bit of damage. And very smart from Turin here to start focusing on my Hargoneth Executioners. He really wants those off the field, because especially when Murderous Prowess pops, they're going to be ripping up Longbeards with great weapons. Probably the scariest thing on the field for the Dawi at the moment, but the Chariots are also up there as well. Chillwind gonna rip through those Grumbling Guard. I want them off the field early on, as fast as possible, because they're a great mainline anchor. And here come the Dark Riders. Turin did not notice that these were Vanguard deployed behind. I'm gonna run over the artillery crew and quickly neutralize the Goblobber, make sure they stop doing damage to my Dark Elf rush. Now here come the Cold One Chariots. And look what Turin has done here. It's actually very interesting and very smart play from him. He has a Thane on each flank, and he did that before the battle had even started. He expected to see plenty of chariots on the field. He was right to do so. He moved the Thanes out to the flank, and he's going to get ready to pop Tormentor Sword on any of these Cold One Chariots that tried to charge into the Quarrelers or into the flank of the Longbeards with great weapons. So he has another Thane over here, kind of shadowing wherever my Cold One Chariot goes and looking to neutralize that as soon as it tries to charge into melee. So very smart from him. Remember, that'll be able to neutralize the Cold One Chariots for 19 seconds and maybe give his Thunderers or his Slayers time to close into melee. Now, Dragonback Slayers are going to overlap and prevent the Dark Riders from doing more damage, but they already did exactly what I wanted to do. I got the Goblobber off the crew of the cannons, or off the Grudge Throwers themselves, and that will prevent them from firing for quite a bit. And now my Black Ark Corsairs will take some of this punishment from the Miners with blasting charges on the front, which is fine. That's what I want. As long as my Harganeth Executioners aren't taking those blasting charges, all good. Black Ark Corsairs should rip them up in melee. That won't be a particularly tough fight. And meanwhile, I'm going to let the Death Hag take his first blasting charges because I don't want my Harganeth Executioners to get wrecked by them. But he actually is going to go for the right target there. The Death Hag will charge through and start pushing through. Miners won't be able to hold on for that for very long. Tormentor Sword has been popped on my Cold One Chariot here, so very well played from Turin. I should already be moving this unit, and I've kind of, after that 19 seconds wore off, I haven't quite noticed it yet, so getting that into the Quarrelers right here would be fantastic for me, charge into the back of those Longbeards. Meanwhile, my Dark Riders have finished off the Goblobber crew, and his Thunders are getting tied down as well, and I'll be able to actually silence 2 units here. I'll be able to get rid of the Organ Guns and the Thunderers, maybe not finish them off in melee, but at least prevent them from firing. This Cold One Chariot just got, actually I think it, yeah, just got Tormentor Sword. Might be wearing off though, I'm not sure how it's moving. That's weird. Okay, that's actually not, that's not supposed to happen. So, I don't know if that's a bug with the UI or what the deal with that is, but the Tormentor Sword did not seem to work here because the Hex is still on and I'm able to charge through. I was pretty sure that in the game itself, this unit wasn't able to continue moving. Maybe it's just a bug with it still showing that Tormentor Sword's on. I don't know. We'll see in a second here. Anyway, I'm able to charge into the back of the Quarrelers, shut them down. Malekith already up to 23 kills. Cold One Chariot only up to 5, but we'll quickly start racking up those kills. And the Harganeth Executioners have engaged on the front. Longbeards with great weapons might trade okay versus Harganeth Executioners, but they're not going to be able to win. And that's going to be an issue for the Dawi here, as the Death Hag and my armor-piercing units kind of roll through the main line, and the Cold One Chariots get onto the flank and start slamming into the rear. So Tormentor Sword didn't seem to work there, which, to be honest, that might be a bug CA needs to start focusing on, because we've also seen in one of these games, Net of Amontok didn't work either. One of his Skink Chiefs in one of the games we played was able to continue moving after I netted it, so that might be something that's just going on in this patch. Hopefully it's not going to be a very big bug, but that's weird. I don't know why the unit is able to continue moving when it's under the influence of Tormentor Sword. It should not be working like that. Anyway, Chillwind will rip through the main line. Harganeth Executioners engaging the Grumbling Guard here, who are getting ripped apart, already down to half strength. And there are some falling rocks out of nowhere. I don't know where those are coming from. That's pretty weird. Goblobber is silenced, so it's not from that. But anyway, the Cold One Chariots are charging in from behind. Murderous Prowess has popped, and almost instantaneously, as I get my Chariots into the back lines, the main line will just completely collapse. And this is a disaster. I mean, you're looking at the battle right now, you can already see that this Dark Elf build has completely rolled over the Dawi main line. Malekith, the Witch King, and his Chariots have completely overpowered Grombrindal, and this was rough. This battle was a little bit rough here. So the Quarrelers, the Thunderers, everything getting silenced now. The main Dawi force, the infantry, the Grumbling Guard, and the Longbeards just didn't have enough to deal with the Cold One Chariots as they charged in from the flank, and even with the Tormentor Sword on this flank in particular, it did freeze them for a while, but 19 seconds isn't that long. It's more than enough time for my Chariots to finally pull out and get that rear charge, and after that, it was just a complete mass rout for the Dawi, honestly. And so with Days of Malice going off there, that's pretty much going to be your game here. I mean, the Grombrindal will make his last stand surrounded by Black Ark Corsairs, but that was almost over before it started, and it made me in turn kind of wonder what should happen with the builds here. Like, what did he do well? What should he change with his army composition to make this a little bit more even? It's hard to say right now what the meta is going to, how the meta is going to evolve. Again, there's so much going on here. There's going to be so many factions and matchups that it's hard to know where the Dawi are going to shake out. But from this battle, I'm going to say it did not look very good for the Dwarfs. So what I think, and what Turin kind of agreed with me here, we kind of talked about after the game, was I think that going for a pure rush build might be the play and work in a lot of those Thanes and Slayers in the back line. So one of the things, and we'll go into a go into custom battle and look at the prices of everything pretty soon here. But, oh my god, Grombrindal gets run over by Malekith, the Death Pack, and the Cold One Chariots, and we're basically just running down everything now. Slayers got a price reduction from 1,000 gold to 900. So that's pretty big in and of itself. And Slayers are not amazing versus Chariots, right? They're going to get bowled over in much the same manner, but they have that bonus versus large, and pairing that with something like Tormentor Sword, if it's working appropriately, which it did on one side, on the other side it didn't. Again, I don't know how widespread that bug was. That was pretty weird. I didn't even see it happening in the replay, or in the actual game itself. But having Tormentor Sword working appropriately, in combination with Slayers, you're going to quickly rip up Chariots if they get frozen down. And then you can pin them. Once they lose their momentum, you can slaughter them. But he didn't have any Slayers out on that flank, which was a big issue for him. You saw as soon as Tormentor Sword wore off, he didn't have anything doing damage to the Chariot. So it's just like, okay, you froze me for 19 seconds, but I'm going to continue my charge into the back lines, run over whatever I see, and after that, he just started routing. So, you need Slayers in combination with the Thanes. That was one of the biggest problems with his army comp and tactics in this battle. He had the Thanes to stop the Chariots, but 19 seconds isn't enough. He needs something there to actually do damage to them so that they can't continue rampaging afterwards. We're going to jump right here into custom battle and take a look at the pricing and talk a little bit more about what he could have done. So, we also agreed that Hammers, with their... Hammers have gotten some pretty serious buffs. Again, because I don't have the patch notes, I don't know exactly what those changes were, like exactly what the stats are, but they have 55 weapon strength and a ton of armor-piercing damage. So I believe that they'll be able to match up very well, if not beat Hargoneth Executioners, and that will be huge. I mean, look at that, 46 melee attack, 55 weapon strength, ton of HP, like ton of armor, 100 armor. They're going to match up pretty well versus Hargoneth Executioners, and they cost less. So I think Hammers are going to be a very good choice versus the Dark Elves. And then, so what I probably would have done with my army composition in general is maybe do something like, and this is going to be very rough. I haven't looked at it that much. I haven't even played the Dawi on this patch yet. But myself in turn both kind of agreed here that Hammers and Slayers would make a pretty big impact. So you definitely want the Dragonback Slayers. You definitely want 2 Thanes. You definitely want the Runesmith to get that the Rune of Wrath and Ruin. That minus 48% speed is just so big. So you're already stacking up a lot of nets and snares that will slow down the fast movers and the important stuff that's operating out on the flanks, trying to get those rear charges. And then you've got Hammers on your main line and Slayers that are 900 gold. So you can make a very potent rush build here. 3 Slayers, or even 4, honestly, you could probably make work. Working in the back to just hold down anything that tries to come in from behind. You've got the 2 Thanes to net anything in place for 19 seconds, and meanwhile your Slayers will be able to rip them up. And Hammers as well. If Hammers get a hold of Chariots when they're not able to move, with that high AP, they'll rip them up too. So, I think, well, and hell, we're not even talking about Flash Bomb here. So, they have stuff going on that's going to really snare a lot of fast movers and prevent the Chariots from doing what they want to do. So, it looked really bad in that game, and it was. Like, the Dwarfs got completely rolled over there, but when you're working with all these things in tandem with each other, I think that it could actually end up working out pretty well for the Dawi. So, I want to see that match up more. Unfortunately, myself in turn only played that game one time. We need to do it more. We need to do some more testing and see if a build like this could actually end up working pretty well. But, and again, there are downsides with this. It's a very expensive main line. You're not going to have a lot of numbers, but it's a little bit of theory crafting. It's not going to be exactly like this build, but I think it can work to an extent for sure. The other thing I want to say about the matchup, let's take a look at the Dark Elf pricing real quick. I think, well, a lot of you guys watching this might have said, why didn't you bring Dark Shards? I personally think that Dark Shards are going to be a trap in this matchup. I think they're actually not going to be that strong against a lot of Dawi builds. So, looking at what we have here, like, yes, they've got the armor-piercing damage. That's obviously, in and of itself, going to be good against the Dwarfs. But Quarrelers are probably going to trade pretty well with them, honestly, I feel like. Let's take a look at the Quarrelers here. They don't have a lot of AP. Only 4 armor-piercing missile damage, but they cost 100 gold less, which is pretty significant. They're going to trade, I think, decently well with Dark Shards, but more than that, with the missile block chance, obviously that's going to help you a lot in a skirmish fight. But artillery, organ guns, and cannons, you're not going to want to sit around and skirmish with the Dwarfs because their artillery is going to rip you up while you're doing so. And yeah, you could be going for a full melee rush with the Dwarfs, but a lot of the times you're still going to be bringing cannons, at least one organ gun, at least one cannon. If you're just sitting around letting that thing shoot you, it won't be good for you. So I don't think that the Dark Shards make that much sense in the matchup. It can work, of course, and you're going to see that sometimes, but overall, I feel like you're going to want to do what I did that battle, basically, and just overwhelm them with Chariots, with the Death Hag on the Cauldron of Blood, with Malekith, and just use that armor-piercing damage to its fullest potential. If you're sitting around skirmishing, that means that your Hargoneth Executioners and Blackguard Corsairs and stuff that really do match up super well versus Dwarfs aren't getting into melee, really. So, I don't think it synergizes that well. I don't think the Dark Shards synergize that well with the idea that really puts the Dawi into the ground, which is just running them over. So those are kind of my thoughts about the matchup. It needs a lot more playtesting. It needs a lot more playtime, because I think that a lot of people fall into the trap of looking at one battle and saying, oh wow, this is a horrendous matchup. There's nothing a faction can do just because they got rolled over. I think we can agree that Turn's a better player than myself, and he did get rolled over in that game, but there's a lot of testing and a lot of different army compositions we need to try out before we put the nail in the coffin. I think that Dwarfs have a lot of changes that are going to make a big impact on them for the multiplayer scene. We saw how many slows and snares they have. I think they have stuff to make it work. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that game. A really fast one. I'll be bringing you plenty of more content soon. And signing out for now, Indie Pride. Peace out.